How are you?
I'm fine. Bit nervous. Don't know why.
Nervous, don't know. It shouldn't be.
I know.
So, give yourself a quick introduction, and then we'll just go from there. So, for the listeners, this is James's mom. So go for it.
Okay. My name's Caroline Baker, formerly Munday, proud mum of James, who was killed in Afghanistan. I'll just tell you about his childhood. We lived in Koza, which is a lovely town. We lived opposite the river. It was just beautiful. I'd got 3 older children from my first marriage, Laura, Robert and Stephen. And then I met Rob Munday, and I'll never forget, we went to my mum and dad's and he said, I want 2 boys. And mum and dad sort of looked at me and I went, okay. So we had 2 boys, James and Jack. So we had a mad house, absolutely full of noise, as you can imagine. Dogs jumping around everywhere, long walks and everything. James was second youngest, so he was a quiet child. I remember that he loved dinosaurs. He knew all the names of them. He just took a lot in. He wasn't so outgoing as he was when he was older, when he was younger. Although I do remember he said to his nanny Beryl when she was looking after them, he said, I want to do this, I want to do that. And she went, well, you're not going to. And he said, well, I'll be sick. And she went, be sick then. So he was sick. Just like little things, but dinosaurs was his thing. And he grew up, and on a Thursday when I worked at Land Rover, he'd go out and we'd go and get the chips, which was a treat on a Thursday night. But they all loved each other. They all got on. They did things that I didn't know at the time, like when me and Rob were in the front room, they'd sneak through and get things from the kitchen to eat upstairs, just seeing if they could get away without us hearing. But he was an absolute joy, James was. Then, unfortunately, Rob and I got divorced, and I was working nights at Land Rover at the time, and it was really, really hard. Rob had gone away, but he came back then, and James decided he wanted to live with his dad. So he went with Jack and lived with his dad. I just sort of fell apart. One thing I am good at is being a mom, and I felt, with hindsight looking back, I should have done more to keep them all together. But with pride, I kept on working. I should have, perhaps should have given up my job, or at least got another mortgage deal, and I could have saved the house and carried on living there. But hey, I've beat myself up with that stick so many times. But yeah,
I don't think you need to. From what I've seen from being around your family for many years, that you're a fantastic mother and a grandmother as well.
Thank you, Nathan. So obviously we were all together and everything, split up with Rob, and then James was looking at something to do. There was a lot of his friends just hanging around the park and stuff, and James didn't know what to do when he left school, and he had me doing mad things like writing to African game parks because he wanted to be a warden.
I never knew that.
Yeah, in Africa. Just didn't want to do the normal things. So we went into sixth form, and I worked at a company called Netlink, which was a family company. I think we've all worked there at some stage or been in connection with it. And James worked in the...
Let him in if you want. Just go and let him in.
Sorry, James worked in the warehouse.
Hold on a sec, sorry. I'll just let her in.
She usually just goes and lies down. I think she's missing out. Little pain in the ass.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Let's go for it.
So the one day James come into the office, stood at the door, and Jackie, one of my friends, went, is he another one of yours? And I'm like, yeah. And she went, God, he's good looking. Well, he was anyway. cut a long story short, it turned out that he wanted to go in the household cavalry. He's the only one of my sons that used to iron his trousers before he went out to play football. Loved rugby, was always out. They were all always out, very much outdoor kids. But James did care about his appearance. And, like his mum, he liked mirrors, I reckon. But he was really set on that. And
You are right. It feels like missing out.
yeah.
Come here, you little sausage.
Oh, sorry, Nathan.
That's fine. You just want some fuss.
So
You'll start jumping up and everything now.
So Rob and I had been divorced about 6 years, and it was time for James to pass out at Purbright. So off we go. We all go down there, Mum and Dad and his sister and brothers, and we're all sat there in the stands waiting for him. Out he comes with all his brothers in arms, parading and everything. Because he goes past, he gives a great wink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheeky.
So, yeah, his mischievousness is coming out now. I mean, I say that when he was young, he didn't have that. I must admit, a memory's just come to mind. We used to go to Aviemore in Scotland for Christmases, and because it was always frosty or there was snow as we went through the mountain passes and stuff, it was a great Christmas atmosphere. And they do like this torchlit parade in Aviemore, and it's real reindeers, and it's just so beautiful. And we went out for Christmas dinner once at the Red McGregor in Aviemore, and he must have been about perhaps 6 or 7, and he'd be quietly sitting there, and all of a sudden we'd looked at him, and he'd got like triangle party hats on his head, one on top, one on the side, one on the other side, and he just keeps a straight face, and he looks at us and he goes, "What?" And he just pulls his face. So his mischievousness was coming on even at that stage. But back to Purbright. We're at Purbright. Everybody's clapping politely, and we're going, "Whoop, whoop, James, woo!" And he's like embarrassed, didn't like public shows of affection at all. And we were really proud. And then Rob and I sort of got back together after that and remarried. So it was a bit crazy. But I was back in Rob's house with them. Robert and Laura lived there for a bit, and Stephen lived there for a while too. But I think in a way it was sort of God's way of me being there more when he come home on leave, instead of being separate and him coming to me. I was always there. So although it didn't work out with Rob, despite 2 marriages, I'm grateful of that time. And we've always loved each other. We might have had a few falls out, but our kids have always come first. And he was a super stepdad to Laura, Robert and Stephen too.
Yeah.
Anyway, James wanted to go into the Household Cavalry Regiment.
Yeah.
And
sorry, just before we move on to the Household Cavalry Regiment, just more on his childhood. Did he have because what we always try and get the lads to talk about is, and the girls when they come on, is did they have what was their sibling life like? Did everyone get on? Was there massive arguments? What was that like? What was that like?
Yeah.
Up with?
No, they actually all got on. They all got on really, really well. But James and Jack were so alike and really, really close, and they'd have right humdingers of fights. Like, I've known one of them end up with a bloody nose when they were older, but mostly they were fine. They all got on pretty well. Jack was the youngest, so he was probably a comedian the same as James. Another trip to Aviemore, we went there, and there was a frozen turkey on the side, and the turkey neck was hanging out, and Jack's running around with it in his hand going, "Turkey Willie," and they're all absolutely howling their heads off. But James, he would be like quiet even when he was older, but he loved Johnny Knoxville. Can't remember what the programme's called, but when they're doing all mad things, Jackass, and he would howl at that. And then the other side of things, we'd come in and be watching Fred Dibner, Steeplejack, you know.
I don't even know who that is.
Don't you?
No,
Oh, he's
go on, explain.
quite famous, Steeplejack. He used to blow them up.
Oh, okay.
But he was quite a character in his own right. So, like, we'd go out and come back in, and it'd either be Johnny Knoxville or Fred Dibner. And the one time he bought this hammock, we didn't know, we'd been out, come back in the door, and he's cleared all the room, all the settees are to the side, and there's a standalone hammock in the front room. There's a Black African church channel on, and they're all clapping and singing. And there's James just lying in his hammock, and he's going, what? You know, as if it's the normal thing. And he would be sitting there 1 minute, and then the next minute he'd be running around like a lunatic. And the one day he'd been out with Kira, his girlfriend, and I don't know where they got it from, but he'd got this cockerel thong. So everybody's sitting there quietly. And then next minute, James is coming down just with this cockerel thong on, running around the house with our hairy big Alsatian called Blue running around after him. And it's like bedlam for about 3 minutes. He's howling at the top of his voice, pressing the button on the thong, which is going cock-a-doodle-doo. The dog's barking, running after him. And he goes to go up the stairs, and his nanny Sheila comes in the front door, and she goes, oh, James, as his bum cheeks are disappearing up the stairs, and James is going, oh, Nan. But you never knew what he was going to do next. Just loads and loads of fun. But, yeah, Laura, she would have been, she's 44 no, she's not. She's 44 now. So I think she would probably be about 8 when James came along. So they were a little bit older. And then I had James and Jack within 2 years. So Laura was born in 1979 and Jack was born in 1989. No, yes, 1989. James was 1987. Am I right?
Yeah, I believe James was older than me by 2 years, I think.
Yeah.
I was in 89.
Really?
I was 89.
Yeah, he was definitely
a little bit
87,
older, yeah.
So you'd be Jack's age then. Yeah, but no, we just did mad things, didn't need a lot of money. They were always out climbing trees or, you know, over the fields we'd go, jumping all the ditches. If we ended up in one, that was a great laugh as well.
Yeah.
They went fishing. Rob taught them how to fly fish as they were getting older. Jack would be patient and pull the fish out. James would be patient for a bit, and then he'd be whipping the water with the end of his fly rod because he just wasn't catching anything. He, as he got older, was really angry with inanimate things. If his phone wouldn't work, he'd either chuck it or bite it. Honestly, you know, just that. This quiet young lad turned into this mischievous, really, really funny, just wonderful young lad. I mean, don't get me wrong, the one night me and Laura had gone to go on the sunbed in Coleshill, which is quite a little town, and we're looking out of the sunbed window, and there's James in the road brawling with this lad. And I'm like, oh my God, James is having a fight, you know, like he's getting dirty. And down with it, like. And I'm like, oh God, what are we going to do? So I went down and said, what, stop it. And Rob Munday was coming along in his car, stopped the car in the high street and went, if you're going to scrap, go up the croft. So they went up the croft, sorted it out. And I think he took some stick for being good looking and for caring about his self and everything. He had even good standards at that age, and it used to crease me up because his cousins, Becky and Katie, they would go to school out of the door and be fine, and then he'd go and twit on them and go to my brother Nigel, his Uncle Nigel. Do you know when they get round the corner, Uncle Nigel, they roll their waistbands up to make the skirt shorter? But it was just a madhouse full of laughter, dogs, everything seemed to get pregnant in our house, even the guinea pigs and stuff and the rabbits. We had Rhodesian ridgebacks, we had rabbits living up the garden. The kids just had what I thought was an idyllic childhood, you know, lots of freedom. We didn't have a lot of money. we were both working to keep them. And the one weekend it was really, really hot. And as I say, we didn't have a lot of money that weekend. And we got this camper van that was air-cooled, a VW, and decided with about 80 quid to go to Wales in Talibont. And just
Where, sorry?
Talibont in Wales.
Okay.
It's by Barmouth.
Yeah.
So off we go, break down about 3 times on the road because it's air-cooled and it's boiling. Have the RAC out. They get us on again. Pull into the campsite with towing a trailer tent. So James, forever helpful, gets out and starts to help us. I mean, it's so embarrassing. You get to the site, everybody's looking out the windows and they're us pushing this white camper van in. James is behind it and then, oh my God, he trips over and the trailer tent runs him over. You couldn't write it. Anyway, he was okay. He was just a bit bruised. So all these people that had been watching come out from nowhere. James is whisked up. His little bruises are treated and everything. And when we had a cup of tea, calmed our nerves, made sure everybody was all right, especially James, went outside and they put the trailer tent up. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, that's all right, isn't it?
A bit harder price to pay for James, though.
Yeah.
But always helpful. Just a personality of his own. But we were lucky. They all got on really well. Laura was that bit older, so she was like a little mother to them when Rob and I split up at one point. But no, they all looked after each other and loved each other a lot. Yeah.
Sweet. Sounds like a
madhouse.
An absolute madhouse. But like you're saying, it's probably the best thing sometimes to have that good experience.
It is.
With such a big family, and I think you see that now with all the rest of your kids still. They all seem having kids and enjoying their life and doing pretty similar things, I can only imagine.
Yeah, they are. And that's great in this day and age where kids are stuck in front of a screen and everything. I mean, my eldest grandson, he likes that, but Jack always says, come on, we're going out as a family. They eat at the table as a family. Mm-hmm. They live in Spain, so they're at the dry river beds. He's got a moped that he goes on. They've got little quads they go on. So they're still having like an adventurous childhood, and that's healthy.
Is Jack the youngest?
Jack's the youngest, yeah.
I remember not having met the family and then being introduced to the family over the years. I just get lost in names.
I know.
Just like, okay, yeah, Rob, right, Jack, yeah, okay, yeah, and then Laura, yeah, okay, trying to remember them all, and it's mad, and I always trip over myself sometimes, and I'm just like, I give up.
Yeah, it is.
And then they've got the
difficult.
kids as well. They've got one of the grandkids is called James, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, and you try to remember all them names, it's bonkers, especially because I'm never around all the time.
Yeah.
And then try to come back because we see you every year, don't we?
Yeah.
We try to.
Yeah.
And then try to recall all the names.
Absolutely.
As well.
I mean, when I first got with Rob, he was Big Rob, and my son Rob was Little Rob. To make the distinction. And then when Rob got older, he went out with a lovely girl called Laura. So we had 2 Laura Janes as well. It was like mind-blowing to me, let alone to, you. But you do, you've done brilliantly. And, of course, then they get partners, don't they? And,
absolutely.
Crazy.
What a childhood.
What a childhood.
Is there anything else you can think about that sticks out in your mind?
No, it was just somebody wrote to me actually after James was killed, and she put, I'll never forget the Mondays. Always out with the dogs, always laughing, always enjoying life. Mm-hmm. And it was a noisy madhouse. And I must say, you never knew with Rob Munday what was going to happen next. Like he worked at the NEC for a bit and come back with this blooming Bouvier de Flanders dog. We already had Ridgebacks, and then we had to have a Bouvier de Flanders called Barney, who was quite intelligent. So we had a house full of dogs, and then he decided to look after this guy's dog from the Crufts. So there's me like, oh my God. Sometimes I'd come home and it looked like we'd had burglars because of the kids and the dogs. Just a crazy, crazy, crazy life. But I'd give anything to go back to that time.
Yeah.
even though making 5 lots of sandwiches and all the different letters coming from school, and James been in fire cadets and
Fire cadets. You'll have to explain this one because I didn't know. Maybe kept that quiet. I don't know.
Yeah, and he loved being smart,
Yeah.
honestly. And he went to Koza Fire Station. I can't remember their exact club what it was, but he used to go there. He'd insist that I iron stuff, but when it come to his shirt, he would do it because it needed the creases in the right place. Really, they'd go on, I think it's on a Tuesday night, and the fireman, my brother was one, and one of the family friends, Norrie, was there as well. He was a fireman, and they'd just go, they'd do a bit of parade things, and they'd just teach them about fires and that. But James loved it, and I've had... there was quite a few Kozel kids that went, and so it was quite a social thing as well. But again, being smart, loved it.
Yeah, loved it. And he carried that through, didn't he, as well?
He did.
So you briefly touched on Pirbright.
Yeah.
Is there anything from Pirbright, apart from the pass-off raid, that you can remember or recall James talking about in training?
Yeah, but I might get mixed up now because I'm not sure whether... Would it be the firing range when you have to be, you have to pass a test with firearms and stuff?
Yeah, at the time I think it was called APWT.
Yeah.
With an SAT.
Yeah.
But go on.
I think it's from this time that he was worried about it. He thought he would be back squadded because...
That sounds like phase 1, yeah.
Yeah. He said, and I've got a great group of lads around me, he said, and I don't want to be back squadded. So I said, well, don't worry about it. You can only do your best. But I've since learned that he actually went to see the officer in charge, had a word with him, and then he must have took whatever advice he was given, because he's come out as Top Gun then. So, really proud of him. But he'd phone up when they'd been out on exercises and stuff, and I'd really feel for him. But, he never really moaned until he got to the cavalry.
Yeah, until he got there,
yeah. But, no, it was hard, and it was hard to see him go. But, you have to respect what your children want and what makes them happy. And I have to say, he performed well on all fronts. And he always said to me, tell it how it is, Mum. Well, he always pulled himself up and did his best. So I was really proud of him. I can't remember much about Pirbright because it's like they're not really with you for 6 weeks. And obviously... I know that he come back during that time, but some of the time is just blank, and I think that could be to do with grief and stuff, because sometimes I will dream about him, but mostly he's a little brown-eyed boy. It's like I can't... Well, I tell a lie. The only time I've dreamt about him when he was older, and I was sitting on a bench with him outside this compound, and we're sitting on a bench and we're talking, and this dream is so real. This is after he was killed. And I could touch him. It was that real. And then these 2 ladies walked past with headscarves on, which I thought like was in the olden days. My nan used to wear a headscarf and stuff. And they walked past, carried on talking, could hear James laughing, having a right good time. And then this other lady... When they walked back, they sort of knocked each other. And I thought, what? And then I realised they could only see me. And when I looked, the bench was empty. James turned round, gave me a wave and a smile and a wink, and he was gone. So they couldn't see him. They thought I was talking to myself. But for that dream, I wanted him back. It was so real. But mostly... I dream of him as a little boy, and I'm trying to carry him, but it's like he's slipping through my fingers. It's a really horrible dream.
Yeah.
But no, Pirbright was just quite closed down. I can't really remember a lot from that, but I do remember when he was training at Knightsbridge with the lifeguards. I do remember bits of that.
So yes, he would have gone there as his phase 2 and then gone to Bovington as a phase 3, I believe. So Knightsbridge. So he arrived at Knightsbridge. What can you remember him going? Do you remember him calling you on his first day, or?
Can't remember specific dates. I can remember him. I can remember him because he was a size 13 foot. Mm-hmm. But he was so vain, he would squeeze his feet into an 11 or maybe a 12. Does that surprise you?
Sounds like a woman. No, it doesn't surprise me.
Well, that scrap in the high street was because I think the guy called him gay because he really cared about his appearance, and he definitely wasn't.
Yeah.
But I remember they'd sourced him some of the high jack boots that you wear on ceremonial. Yeah. And he had to wax them because they just normal leather when they come, and they have to.
I never went to Knightsbridge. I dodged that place like the plague. But yeah, so from what I would.
Yeah. Well, they have
it's
to.
It's just leather, and then they have to build just like your drill boots.
Build up the wax and
but
stuff
instead
on
of
them.
it just being the toe cap, it's the whole leg.
Yeah,
it's mad.
So like he's doing it, and he phones me up, and he's like, "Oh my god, Mum, I'm going to be in real trouble." And I went, "Why?" He said, "I burnt my boots." I'm like, "What do you mean you burnt your boots?" And he says, "Well, melting the wax on it." He said, "I actually caught the boot." He said, "There must be like loads of money." He said, "Oh my God, I'm going to get done." Anyway, if I said, "Look, try and get hold of someone older not older perhaps, but who's been in longer." Mm-hmm. And someone came and helped him, and they managed to polish it out, end of drama kind of thing. Another time he rang me, and they were going out on, I can't really say what it was called, before they went out at Knightsbridge. They were going on ceremonial, and there was this really bolshy one and called him a brummy something, and James didn't like it, but they were going out. So they go out, do the ceremonial, come back, and then he goes up to the guy and he went, "What do you call me?" So he says to his face, "You're a brummy." So James took umbrance at that and socked him one. But the other guy had what's-it up to him first. He was obviously looking for a fight. James wasn't aggressive like that, wasn't a troublemaker. He was quite a gentleman. Mm-hmm. Again, I got the phone call, "Mom, I think I'm going to be in trouble. I'm going to be in prison at Colchester. And I'm sure you won't." I said, he says, "I'll have to go in." Anyway, when he went in, they said, sort of between you and I, fair play, he needed taking down a peg or two. Yeah, so, fair play, James.
Yeah.
And then he would phone me up late at night. And how it works is, I understand that if one of you isn't up to standard when you're going out on the horses the next day, when you're in training, then the whole of you suffer. So he would be up taking Pro Plus through the night, moaning that he's not only got himself to get out, but the horse, the tack, everything has to be perfect, doesn't it, for ceremonial. So there he is, you're going, "We've broke down the pay," he said, "and it's like peanuts an hour," he said, "because he's there, passes another Pro Plus." And I remember once when he'd been out, I don't know if they go to Brecon Beacons from there, but he'd definitely been out somewhere. Mm-hmm. He was cold, he was hungry. Was it Mess where you have your... Yeah, that was shut. Yeah. So he phoned me up and he said he was pretty good with money, but this day they'd taken some out of his bank early. And he said, "Mum," he said, "I'm really hungry and that, and I haven't got any money." He says, "Can you pop me some money through?" This was really strange for James, I have to say, because he's usually on top of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I gave him some money through. And Rob went, "Is he crying on the phone?" And I went, "No, he's just been out. He's tired, he's hungry. I've just transferred some money to him. He's not crying. He's just saying." So, so that was good. I never went to see him on Queen's. But we did go to troop in the colour. Mm-hmm. Well, my dad was in the Coldstream Guards, so when I was a little girl, we used to go nearly every year. I'd sit on my dad's shoulders, and he was Coldstream, so he would tell me, "Oh, we were smarter than that in our day," and all this business.
Back in my day.
Yeah. I hope standards aren't slipping. Like, bloody hell, you could see in his shoes. They were that shiny. And we went down to Trooping of the Colour. There was Rob, Jack and me. Oh, and Kira, his girlfriend. So again, he's going past and we're going, James! So proud of him.
If you're still listening, thank you. If you're personally struggling or know someone that is, Head Up is a non-profit organisation for the UK Armed Forces charity. Their mission is to stem the suicide rate and improve the quality of lives within the armed forces community. They do this by educating and encouraging individuals to implement positive mindset methods into their daily routine, giving a deeper understanding and awareness of subjects such as nutrition, physical activity, sleep, breathing techniques, and much, much more. They also conduct one-on-one help alongside wellness presentations, days, fairs, and events, as well as mini retreats. They are currently developing a 7-day residential retreat. Head Up requires no medical evaluation or doctor's notes. They are here to help everyone, no matter what their mindset. Everything they do is completely free of charge. Anyone who has served or is still serving within the Army, the Royal Air Force, the Royal Navy, and the Royal Marines, including all reservists, are entitled to benefit from their services. If this isn't worth supporting, I don't know what is. If you would like to know more information about this, you can find the link in the bio.
And he does this little slight wink, doesn't move his head, but winks. And this American voice comes, "Oh my God, you know him?" And we're like, "Yeah, he's our son." "Oh my God, what's his name?" Because, it's great for the country, the pageantry and everything. That's fabulous. And so proud of him. Proud of him anyway. For me, he didn't need a uniform to make me proud of him. I was proud of him anyway for his morals, his values and stuff. But he used to say that Knightsbridge was a bit Dickensian. That's the term he used. He said the buildings, I suppose he meant, and everything. But then if he was on stag and he was in the stables, he would phone me from there as well, and he would say, "Can you hear the horses, Mum?" And I'd go, "Yeah." He'd go, "That's so-and-so," and tell me the name. And I'd love that. And and then if he was at Combermere Barracks, and before he could drive, I would happily take like Rob's car and drive down there. I'd sit in a Pizza Hut or Pizza Land, whatever it is, in Windsor, looking at the castle, order a pizza. Then I got a phone call. "Oh, I can come out now, Mum." So pizza goes in a box. I might have had one bite. Goes in the box. Go round to Combermere. Phones me up. "Don't kiss me or hug me. I know the squaddy that's on the gate." Oh, God. "All right, James. Mummy won't."
Yeah.
Oh, God. So there we have Kaiser Chiefs on and whatever, blaring out. He's scoffing the pizza and telling me all about it. And off we go home.
So is this when he was doing phase 2 at Windsor? So
Yeah.
he was learning to ride the horses at Windsor? Okay.
Yeah. So that'd be, he would come home perhaps every couple of weeks. My memory is so blurred. But then he got a car. He passed his test and he got a car. So then he would drive himself or go down by train.
Okay. Is there any other, can you think of any other like out there stories that he would have come home and told you during that period of time? Whether it be going out with the lads, the bonding that they did in London, in specific to Knightsbridge and his phase 2 training.
I knew that he'd got some close relationships with the guys. I'd hear him on the phone to Selby. I'd hear him on the phone to Beale.
Yeah.
Zach.
Yeah.
Talking to them and that. But he actually kept it quite as another kind of life. I think I know more about it now, which is a real shame.
Yeah.
But no, I think overall that was where the basis of his friendships started with a lot of them. Some had been there from the start. So, yeah, it's sets the base for friendships where you got each other's back and stuff. I know that he used to go out, and there was a young lady that that liked him and always asked about him, but obviously he was with Kira. Oh, I remember Kira went down once and he got permission for Kira to stop, and they photocopied pictures of Kira and him and put them all around the barracks, but I'm not sure if that was...
I've heard this story before, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not too sure. This happened a lot, by the way. So,
did it?
Yeah, and to be honest, we probably shouldn't have been on that system, but we'd somehow get on the system, see the picture, get the picture, put it on A4 and then put it around the block, and it always caused some uproar. So I'm adamant that was actually when he was at Windsor as on the armoured side.
On the armoured side,
sure it was.
Yeah. I get mixed up. Yeah. I apologise.
Because I remember I remember him talking about that girlfriend, Kira, you say.
Yeah.
I remember that at that time. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's just, I was speaking to Tank.
Yeah.
And he reminded me of a story to tell you. And as you mentioned, Selby, they went to do some riding somewhere. And just before they went out, Selby had actually picked his boots up. It was like a summer ride or something, and hid them. So he was like, they'd all get formed up and he can't find his boots.
Oh.
He couldn't find them at all, and then he ended up finding them, played like a little trick on him. And then he says all you could hear the whole journey around was him calling him everything under the sun.
I bet he would, because he would hate. Yeah. Oh my God, I can imagine. I bet he had a right temper with that. I bet he was so.
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I also heard of him singing songs from Les Miserables as well there, because I took them to see it when they were young. And yeah I think if it was more modern at Windsor than Knightsbridge, but he was fine at Knightsbridge until they said he was up for promotion, and then he said, "How can I go further without having a tour of duty under my belt, Mum?" And I went, "Stop at Knightsbridge. It's Dickensian. Stop at Knightsbridge. You wanted to be a farrier. Be a farrier. Be a riding instructor. Do anything. Stop at Knightsbridge." No, I really must, Mum. So again, off it goes to Windsor.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember him going to Phase 3 training? So going down to Bovington to do his driving.
No.
Did he have a car licence before that?
Yeah.
He did?
Yeah. He didn't have one when he was at Knightsbridge. He didn't have one when he was at Windsor to start with. But, hold on, I'm getting mixed up here, aren't I? Yeah, Combermere. Picked him up from there until he got his car, and then he used to drive himself or go down on the train. Yeah. So he had a licence then, yeah.
So if he didn't have it before then, he probably did it at Bovington. Did he ever? Do you remember if he did it here?
Oh, there is something.
Because normally you do your car licence, and the week after you're in a tank driving around, literally straight after.
That actually pinged a memory that he did do something down there. Yeah, he did.
He would do driving, car driving, tank driving.
Yeah.
Then he would do signals.
Yeah.
Mats, I believe. And then they would go to regiment. But he would have been there as a Phase 3, no doubt. So they get treated a little bit better than the Phase 2 lot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He, I know, just backtracking a bit, I know that people have said as well when he was at Knightsbridge that he would go and help, what do you call them? The crows.
Crows, yeah.
Yeah, that he would go and help them clean the boots and everything. So I thought, that is James, because he'd be repaying back when he was helped. But yeah, I do get a bit mixed up with it all, because James was quite, well, I'm home now, but I did hear him laughing and that on the phone, and I know, like, he went out with Selby. Oh gosh, what's his wife's name? Cassie.
Yeah.
And they went out and they took pictures of him sprawled across this three-wheeler's bonnet and stuff, and just having mad nights out, just crazy. But Kira was with him that night as well. But I know that because of where they were going, I know that the regiment actually made it quite fun on some occasions, like nude order and stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah.
With Will.
Yeah. Just trying to think, because you used to do naked minibuses.
Yeah.
But that's like a Castle Martin, that is.
Castle Martin, yeah.
Is that what you're on about there, referring to? Okay, nice.
And they got stopped by the police.
Yes, we did, yeah.
And I think Keno was driving, wasn't he? Or sat at the front. Was Will driving?
No, he was sat at the front, and I'm sure... And he just sat there like nothing to see. Yeah, something like that. I've got very vivid memories. I remember everyone would come onto them and sit there, and he'd be like, "Right, no getting naked, you lot." And we'd all be like, "Yeah, okay." And then you'll be like, "Hold," because you'd have to wait till we get onto the main road, and then all of a sudden it'd be like, "Right, naked minibus."
No.
And then as we showed that, everyone just got naked and just shoulder barging everyone. There's like fighting in the back, and someone had their I believe they had some of their clothes thrown out.
No.
Or it was a wallet or something. It was really bizarre. So they had to like cancel the cards and all sorts. It was carnage. But yeah, that's a very that's like a good core memory of that place. As when I've spoke to other people, we all talk about very similar things that happened within that time.
Yeah.
So no, you are right. Yeah, you just reminded me of some stuff.
He said the copper said who's in charge, and he just, whoever it was, I'm sure it was Keno, but he sort of went, he is, and Will just sat there, and I'm like, hilarious.
Yeah.
He said, but when you're going into like a war zone, you've got to have your downtime as well. And I know they went out to clubs and had a whale of a time.
Yeah.
Still with everybody having each other's backs, you know.
Bonding. We were just bonding. Everyone was bonding and having a really good time together.
Yeah.
And letting your hair down, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good times. And,
Yeah.
And I think it's genuinely really good core memories for everyone in that era. All talk about the same things, naked. Well, obviously you're naked in the shower, but it's like a big communal shower. I don't know if you ever told you this. And there was a fire hose on the outside, and then the junior lads would come in not knowing anything about it. One of the senior lads would just scurry out while the other lads kept on talking, and then all you'd hear is water on, and this fire hose would just go, and you'd just get hosed down. And then lads would throw soap on the floor, so if you fell over, you'd just slide across the floor. And,
no way, absolute carnage.
Yeah. It was mad.
Fun though.
Yeah, and then you'd just be like a fight in there, not like a nasty fight, just like people shoulder barging. Everyone getting rough with each other, shoulder barging and trying to stay on your feet and slipping over. And it's an absolute experience. And when you speak to people from different regiments, they had a very similar experience. So it was passed down, not like you will do this. It was like
sort of a ritual.
Yeah, ritual thing.
But
that gets passed down. It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
But did he ring home much about Castle Martin?
No. I wouldn't even have known that he'd been there. Yeah. He just kept it really separate. As I say, I learnt more afterwards, where all the names he was talking to sort of came, and there they were in person.
Yeah.
But I know that, like you think it's all, parades and, full on, which it is at times, I can imagine. But there's also the side where you're going out having fun with your mates. And I think it's just like no holds barred sometimes. You'd be on the bloody rampage.
Yeah. Everyone trying to do one better, drink more, do more shots.
Yeah.
It's always a mad one. And I always remember when we all used to go out together. And again, it's really weird. Most of that part was quite hazy, probably because I was drunk a lot of the time, and so I can't actually remember much of it. But yeah, it's just always mad going out. You're just like, oh god, I'm going out with the lads. Amazing time. But I said to one of the other lads before, I was like, if you had a weak moment and you didn't want to go out, your doors would get kicked in. You'd have your clothes thrown at you. And then you'll be like, I've got no money, and it's just no excuse because there's 15 of us here, 10 of us, and we'll all buy you a drink each.
Absolutely.
So even if you were slightly short that month, you were covered by everyone else. Yeah, you're still going to get bladdered. and it'd be even if you was like a week short of money, everyone would just look after you, and it was that real good sense of togetherness, that
Yeah.
camaraderie, as
Yeah.
people would call it.
Rob, my ex, used to work down the pit, and there was camaraderie there because you got to watch each other's backs and probably watch each other's backs as well. But I've never known a strength of connection that I've seen with you guys. And totally overwhelming, that bond that you've got, all of you. But I know that he had a lot of fun, and like, I suppose I got censored versions, but some of the things is just misty in my memory, and he probably shared it more with Jack.
Yeah, most likely. So as a parent, what was, because this was encompassed in our pre-deployment training for us to deploy. So how did that feel for you, being told? I presume you come home and said, "Oh, we're deploying on this particular day," because I can't remember any of that. I just remember pre-deployment training and then going. I don't remember him saying, "There's a date. That's when you go in," and then having to go home and tell anyone. I don't remember any of that. Did you have that?
He gave us a date, and I was asking all about it, and he said, "Well," he said, was there a meeting that you could go down and learn a bit more about it?" And he says, "But you don't need to go. I can tell you all about it anyway." So that was it. We knew the date he was going. We went, not drinkers, but we did go to a couple of pubs, and we ended up in the hotel with Andy and Beth when they were running it. And they were really full and that. And was someone underage? No one was underage. They were full. And the bouncers said, "We can't let you in." And Andy come, and we sort of said, "Well, James is going to Afghan, shortly. This is his last night of fun." So we all went in there. We was in there for, well, not till the cock crowed, but, had a really good send-off night. And he was fine. And then the one night before he was going, he went out with his friend Clark, who's in the Irish Guards, and he come back in, and he was fooling about with the dog. Honestly, Blue, the dog's name was Blue, but James would go, "Snuggleberry," with his funny things.
Yeah.
And they'd end up running around and that. And when he come back off leave, the dog, I'd go, "Snuggleberry's coming," because he knew it was James then. And I'd hear plonk, plonk, and his paws were on the windowsill, waiting for James to come back. Then they'd be running around. But that night, Clark and he came in, and they'd had a good night, and they were fooling about, laughing and joking. In fact, they woke me up, and plane blew up. And I went down and went, "I had a good night then, have you?" And suddenly James just switched, and he said, "Clark, stop here. I need to speak to my mum." And Kira had phoned me earlier, and she said, "James has been round, but he's not himself." She said, "He bothered me." Anyway, we went up to the bedroom, and I'm sitting on the bed, and he stood in front of me, and I could see his neck muscles flexing, and he moved to one side, moved to the other. And I said, "Whatever's the matter, James?" And he just went like that, and I went, "Is it going to Afghanistan?" So my mother bit come out, and I went, "Oh, look, you're in your bedroom, you're not going, I'll get you out. And he went, "No, Mum, you don't understand." And I went, "Okay, Lynn, give me a minute." I said, when I'm not on the same level, whatever, but if ever I've had to do the manager's job in customer service at Netlink, I've worried about it, because I've never, only know my job sort of thing. It's similar, but you have to deal with more things. And I've worried about it, but I couldn't let the team down. And I have to go and do it. I'd learn things, and at the end of the week, I'd be proud of myself. And he went, "See, you do get it, Mom." He said, "I'm part of a chain, and if I don't go, the chain will be weaker." He said, "But," he says, "none of them are saying anything about worrying about it." Or he said, they just go, "I can't wait to go," and all this. And I said, "James," I said, "there's probably all of them, or at least some of them, having this conversation with their parents, right now." I said, that's what keeps you going, doesn't it? I said, but you're going to be anxious because you've never been there before. I said, but, if you've got a job to do, you train for it, and you're with your mates, you'll be fine. And he said, what if I lose a leg though, Mum? And I went, James, I said, if you lose a leg, we'll deal with it. You're still James. And he sat on the bed by me and he said, I love you, Mum. And I said, I love you too. And I looked him in the eyes and I went, however you come home, I will be there for you. However you come home. And he seemed to relax then, went back down to Clark, and nothing like that was ever said again. Mm-hmm. So I can remember saying goodbye to him in the road with his sister and brothers.
Sorry, just before you move on. How did you feel when he spoke to you like that as a mother?
I wanted to protect him.
Yeah.
Didn't want him to go. It's not a quandary, but when we went to Iraq, I didn't really agree with us being there. But my message is you can support soldiers. They don't choose where they go. That's politicians. And obviously, I was proud of him that he had a job to do. But as a mom, obviously, you want to keep him safe. You want to, try and talk him out of going to Windsor, go back, you're in the musical ride, you can be a farrier, go back to Knightsbridge rather. But, when he's needing to do this, you have to respect that as hard as it is, and it is hard, and I've been in rooms where people have said about the First and Second World War, about, it must have been awful seeing the lads off. And people seem to forget that it's relevant now as well, I was one of those mothers, and your heart is breaking, and there's, like James doesn't like public shows of affection. So like he's letting us give him a hug, but I can see that if this carries on, it's going to upset him, so you have to sort of go, okay, well, it's got to go now, and then do your crying in, behind closed scenes as it was. And his number when he used to phone me, because I didn't even know if he was allowed his mobile phone out there. I know he had it now, but I don't think he used it. Well, I know he didn't use it to phone out.
He wasn't allowed to.
No. How does that work with the phone? Is it like, what kind of phone is it?
Satellite phone.
Satellite, that's
it's all satellite, yeah. So they don't use like the 3G, the normal signal, because it can get intercepted to some degree, depending on what technology they.
Okay, so did you have to queue for it?
Yeah, it was like queuing for food. Everyone was stood outside, and it'd be like little booths for privacy, and one in, one out phone, and then occasionally we had up minimise, which meant someone had been injured, so there was like zero contact to the outside world.
I remember that happening when Baba was killed.
Yeah, just recently had his anniversary.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
How long has it been? 15 years? Is it 15?
It's 16 this year, 16? Isn't it?
Yeah, 16 this year.
16 this year. Yeah, but I always remember that. And Kamari, his wife, she wrote to me when James, so I always think of her as well. But like, did you have a certain amount of time you had as well?
Yeah, so I believe we had like welfare 20 minutes or something, and then you could go and buy extra time. Okay. If that makes sense. Yeah. I'm adamant. Again, it's so vivid. It's like a really blurred memory. And I feel like, because we wasn't in there that much anyway, you'd be out on the ground, you'd have a sat phone, and even then that was hard to come by, because they'd break, someone would break the antenna, and it's just like, God's sake. Well,
because like he was with Kira, he would phone Kira, but every time it came through, it would show as James, Afghan. It would be flashing on my phone. And sometimes I've been that anxious to speak to him, I've cut him off. And he's had to phone back. I'm like, he goes, Mom, what are you like? I'm like, oh.
Because it was a bit of a nightmare to do, because you had to go into like the operator, whatever it was, then put the digit of the card in and then the number, then do something else and then come through.
No way. Well, he didn't show his, Mum, what are you like? Yeah, frustration. He was like, oh, Mum, what are you like? And, if say you were driving or in an appointment, you couldn't answer it and you missed that call, it was just terrible because you go out and there was no contact, and because he spoke to Kira, if he didn't have time left for me, after speaking to Kira, his dad, his brothers, his sister, whatever, like I was close with Kira because she would tell me what was going on, or with his dad or my children, obviously. But I didn't know he had that rigmarole to go through.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like long-winded.
No,
because I would look at these digits and it would all be upside down, back to front to me, and I'm like, oh no, it is a 3-star again.
Yeah, but with these anger at inanimate objects, I bet he was thinking, oh, Mum, what are you like? But yeah, that's how I kept up to date. And then he would go off. He'd say that he was going on wherever. Well, he couldn't say where he was going, but he said, well, I won't be here. You won't hear from me for a few days, So that was it. And then perhaps sometimes he'd get in and go on Facebook or to check the football scores or something, or phone Rob, and Rob would go, he's back in camp. And I'd think, thank God for that.
Yeah.
So it was like a family thing. We would all have bits that we could put together and know that he was fine. Yeah. He, as I said, he protected me from a lot of it. He just kept it, what's going on at home, Mum, and is everybody all right? How's Nan and Grandad? He'd phone his Nan and Grandad as well. Really mature, loving, generous James, and still funny with things that were happening as well. But as I say, he kept it light. I think he knew that if he told me anything, that it would worry me. And he opened upon the one call. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but the last time I spoke to him, I'd moved from Netlink and I was working for Parcel Force at Coventry Airport, Paddington Airport. It's not like a commercial place. And he'd been cut off about 3 times. So I started work at 8:30, and you're not allowed your phone. So it was in my glasses case on my desk. So my glasses case starts jumping about, vibrating. So I looked at Clayton, who I was working with, and he went, that's more important. So I went and spoke to James, and he told me that he'd had a few James Bond moments. And could I make an appointment with the doctor and the dentist, because he needed to be checked out. And he said, I can't tell you over the phone, Mum. He said, but when I get back, I'll tell you. He said, but it's been absolutely crazy. And he got cut off. So he come back through to me and he went, Mum, if I get cut off again, I won't phone back. He says, but you know what? When I get home, I'm going to sleep for days. He said, I'm that knackered. And I could hear it in his voice. He was shattered, and he'd come back. He came back after 6 weeks on R&R, and then he came back to learn how to drive the Wimac and the Jackal.
Yeah, the Wimac and Jackal, yeah, that's it.
So he had, we had that extra time with him. But it must be, I can understand the anxiety the first time you go, because you don't know what to expect. But then when you've been there and you've witnessed stuff, to have to actually go back to it, does any person realise what they've signed up for? I mean, James was 17 when he signed, and his dad and I had to sign him in. And he used to do this joke with, if I'm lying, dying, bleeding in the desert, remember you sign me in. Black squaddy humour.
Yeah.
He would say, my name will be on that wall at Alrewas. And it got to the point, I'd go, don't be stupid. And then if it come up on Central News, he'd just look at me and I'd go, like growl at him. And it'd become a joke sort of thing.
So you interjected some real squaddy dark humour there.
Yeah. Because you need that, there has to be that balance. But never thought, despite my mother fears for him, I knew you'd all got each other's backs, and that was a comfort in itself, knowing that he was with his army family when he was out there. He and Kira finished when he was out there, and I was really worried about his mental state because he loved Kira. And, you know, him being in a foreign country in a war situation, well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You know, it was difficult to cope with that. But Kira was still there for him. My family was still sending out boxes and that to him and everything. And, oh, geez, one of my boxes I sent out to him. Guess what it was?
Did you have any alcohol in it?
No. It was a bloody chocolate hamper. Can you imagine that?
And it melted. It got all mush, was it?
Yeah, so, yeah, but, that it was a comfort to know that he was there with all of you. But I swear you don't stop worrying. And I often think what it would be like if we had the media coverage that we have now in the First and Second World Wars, because you read about that, but now you actually see a lot of it. And it was a constant reminder, it being on the news, that these numbers were growing. And, you know they're more than a number. And it's like in your living room. So although it's reassuring to get the phone calls and that, I think you're still on edge all the time.
Yeah.
Worried. And I think that's why when he phones and I'd see James Afghan flashing, I'd be like, oh, fingers and thumbs, because I was so excited. But it, I don't know, it's just seeing what was happening, hearing about it, seeing another soldier had been killed. You lived it. We weren't there, didn't know what you were going through, could only guess the sights that you'd seen. But just on edge all the time. You felt like you were ready for action, if something happened. And I used to do really stupid things like, and this is crazy, to keep James safe. If I was in the bath, I had to take the scrunchie off the tap, put it back on with my toe. James will be safe then.
So that's like a coping mechanism for you, isn't it? Yeah.
Just stupid things. I have to do that twice so he, nothing can happen to him. And Laura, before she went to sleep, she would visualise putting this purple safe cloak around him. We had yellow ribbons like the Americans do. She put one round a tree. My friend at work, Carol, did. And, and then towards the end, he'd got 2 weeks to go. And this is really pathetic, but people who are that way will understand that I would say a prayer for him every night. And then when he got only 2 weeks to come back, I sort of stopped doing the scrunchy thing and I felt like I got a bit complacent. And yet my messages to him on Facebook were like, they won't care if it's your first day or your last, keep your head down, Not long now, you're 21 when you're out there. I sent him all his birthday cards. And we'll have a party when you come back. In my head, I was going to get in one of those days where you could go to Anfield, Liverpool, have a look round and everything when he got back, but have a big party when he come back. And little did I know that the 10th would be the last time that I spoke to him, although I know that Jack's birthday is the 12th of October and he spoke to Jack. I also know he spoke to Kira, but she missed his last call, but they were still very much friends and everything.
Yeah.
And then it all went heartbreakingly wrong.
Yeah. And what was that like, receiving the phone call? Well, it's not a phone call, is it? I'd have to correct myself on that one. It's you get a knock at the door.
Yeah, well, because Rob was next to Keane and we were separated, the man and the lady knocked at Rob's door. I've been told this afterwards. My mum is in a neighbour, Kath's house, opposite to her and my dad's house, and she sees Rob Munday walking up with these two people. So she comes out of Kath's house, and as they greet her, they say where they're from, and they said, "I'm really sorry, Sheila, your grandson's been killed in Afghanistan." And she went, "No, that's not my James. No, my dad's up the garden." So they go in, and then my dad finds out. Rob hasn't got my number anymore. So I'm leaving Parcel Force. I missed a call from my sister and she doesn't know. And I listened to the message and she says, Cal, can you phone home? Mum's acting really strange. She said, can you phone home? And I went, yeah, okay then. So in Parcel Force, you have to go through 2 lots of security. So I'm walking in the car park by myself. I'd only been there probably 6 weeks, so I didn't really know anybody as such. And I phoned my sister, she said that. So I phone up Mum and I say, all right, Mum, hello, Cal. Pop in and see us when you get home. And I said, oh, I'm stopping in Coventry tonight, Mum. No. Well, can you just come home? And she's like really insistent. I went, oh, Mum, it's like 12 miles. And then I sort of thought, and I went, oh, God, is Dad okay? And she went, your dad's fine, just come home. And then I honestly can still, this blackness come over me. And it was like it came down to my neck and just strangled me. And I went, tell me it's not James, Mum. And she went, just come home. And I went, is he injured? And she went, I'm sorry, Cal. And I just screamed. I was on my knees. This like feral, wild, guttural sound come out, totally foreign. And I felt like my heart was being ripped out. And I just wanted to be in Afghanistan. I just wanted to be there. How was I at work? And I didn't know. Why didn't I feel that? It's my blood. Why didn't I feel it? And then I get up. I notice people are looking at me. And bubble comes down. I walk back into Parcel Force, into the security office, and I go, disbelief. I've just found out that my son's been killed in Afghanistan and the army are coming for me. Just like that. Just switched. Like too big to cope with. Initial complete overwhelming devastation. Just this animalistic pain. I can't describe it, Nathan. It's just the worst ever. And then bubble.
Bizarre.
Just go in, say that. And so they're giving me glasses of water and waiting for the army to come, cups of tea, and then the army are on the way. My sister Nikki's in the car with them. I'm like, oh, this is crap, you know. And I just wanted to jump in my car and go home, but I knew that I wasn't right, although I was showing us in control. And eventually, because it's like really tucked away, Parcel Forces at Coventry, and the lady was driving with my sister, and my sister got out of the car, and I looked at her face and I thought, oh my God, this is real, you know. So then I'm thinking, Nikki hugs me, the lady says she's sorry, it's all a bit of a blur, get in the back of the car, and I'm thinking, oh my God, do my children know? I knew Rob knew. So I'm like, oh God, Nikki's saying Jack knows, Rob knows, Stephen knows, they're with Mum and Dad and Rob. So I'm like, oh my God, Laura. So I phone up Laura. She's being driven by a friend, Karen, and it's like a complete copy of the phone call from my mum to me and me, her mum to her. And she says, tell me it's not James, exactly the same. And I said, just get to Nan and Grandad's, Laura. And I could just hear her crying and screamed out. And Karen, I think, took her, I'm not sure, to Mum and Dad. So then I'm thinking about Kira. So I phone up her home and I think she's at university, and she is. So Kath, the mum, who's really thought the world of James, she's like in shock. So she phones Kira, so I know Kira knows. Bucky and all the friends. Then I'm thinking about Ida, who's 80-odd at the time, and I'm thinking, if she sees that on the news, it'll just kill her. So I'm thinking about other people and everything, contact who I can, pull up at the avenue, walk into the house, all these faces, absolute, just just total devastation. I'm like, and it hit me like a brick wall, and I'm like, this is real. Oh my God, this is real, but still bubbled. And the first thing I said to Rob was, he come and hugged me, and I said, and what for? What for? I went, and he went, no, it's not the time, Cal. The man and the lady who I can't even picture at all from the army, they left, but before they did, they introduced Will to us, who was our visiting officer, who was just amazing from day one. I can't speak highly enough of him. I wish I'd never met him, but if anybody had to do that job, I'm glad we got Will.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So was he there that day as well?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's interesting because I'm just trying to put how he got there. So
because he was 3 months in Afghan, and then
the
other
over,
Will Davis took over.
That's it. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, so Will was back, but Will told us that he'd been the officer in charge. I don't know the ranks, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I know he's a major, but I didn't know what his position was there. But I know that he was a squadron leader.
He was in charge of us, yeah.
Yeah, the Mighty D squadron.
The Mighty D, yeah.
Yeah. So it was nice that he knew James as well, you know, and I always felt, and I know, that it was more than a job for Will.
Mm-hmm.
He was family from that day, as are you all.
Yeah.
And, you know, like we'd meet up every day. Rob's house was in disarray because he was having work done. I was living with my sister at the time, between places. She was amazing, and so was her family, looking after me. And so we would meet at mum and dad's. And now I'm a nan. That must have been really hard for my mum and dad, but my mum sort of put a face on it. My dad, because he was ex-Coldstream, and he and James used to do this thing with the feet and laugh, and he'd say, Grandad's the only one that knows what it's like being in. And my dad said, do you think he went in because of me? And he felt guilty because of that. There was a lot of emotion, and there's Mum just bringing the tea in, you know, shaking hands, clink, clink, clink. The little ice rings, Will liked them. And I think she had a bit of a soft spot for Will, and Dad totally respected him. And slowly but surely we got everything ready. And I said to Will, I've got to see James. Well, first of all, I bought him a ring when he was 20. Because he said one of the officers wore it on a little finger, and it was the household, the lifeguard's badge.
That's right, yeah.
So bought him that, and he said to me, I think it was £300 odd, and he treasured it. And he said, I won't have a Christmas present. This was the year before, because it's so much money, and we've got brothers and sisters, like, and so that's that. But I didn't believe it, and I was still in control, but sometimes that animal noise would get me when my bubble got thin. And I said, don't believe it. Bring me his ring. Don't believe it.
Sorry, you refer to the animal noises in...
Me.
Yeah, okay. Can you explain that a bit more?
It's like you have no control. It's like your soul being physically ripped out. That's what it feels like. It would... I think it is like your heart your soul being ripped out. I can't explain it. It's, you know, like you might think if this happens or have a bad dream and stuff, it's like that times loads and loads and loads. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And I even, you know, I wouldn't have wished it on Harry's mum or Paul's mum, Paul, and sorry, my head's gone, but I wouldn't have wished it on their mums. I'm glad they survived. Mm-hmm. I'm glad they survived. But the support from Will and the cavalry meant that we could deal with our grief while he was doing all the other bits.
Yeah.
So efficient. So amazing. But I'll just tell you this one thing. It was really hard, but it was made easier because of Will. And we were talking about the service, and I said, he loved Les Mis. I said, there's an obituary saying that, you know, he sang it in the barracks. I said, I'd love bring him home. And Rob had never heard it, my ex-husband. And he said, yeah, we'll have that. And then there's this song that we used to sing at school, and it's called When a Knight Won His Spurs. And Will went...
How does it go?
Yeah,
do you feel good enough to sing it?
Will went, how does that go? And I went, when a knight won his spurs in the stories of old. And he went, no. So that's in my funeral for my kids to sing, and they will just howl at that. Yeah, we were allowed to grieve. But Will, the one day, said it had been a nightmare, but brought James's ring to me. So that was something I could touch, and I knew, beginning to grasp it, although still bubbled. But slowly and surely, the service was put on. I kept saying to Will, I want to see James. I got this voice in my head saying, I need you to kiss me goodnight, Mum. And that was James saying that to me. Can't explain it, but I knew I'd have to see him. Rob, there is no book written on how to deal with grief. You do whatever keeps you standing. Yeah. And so Rob didn't want to know about James's injuries, whereas for me, fact is better for me. It couldn't be any worse than what I was imagining. James was really good looking and 6'2" of gorgeousness. The army had really matured him. He was good with his money, lots of respect, a lovely, lovely son. Didn't need the uniform, but he was growing up. I think that's what I'm trying to say. And I just had this voice saying, kiss me goodnight. So Rob didn't want to know. That was his way of dealing with it. Cut a long story short.
You don't need to cut the long story short. You can go into it as much as you want.
Well, I didn't know at that point how James was. I just thought he had a uniform on. Mm-hmm. Call me stupid. I just think he had a uniform on. And Will said to me, I think would it be okay if I dress him in lifeguards, the red tunic, no crevasse, whatever it is.
What, the breastplate?
Yeah, no breastplate.
So you had like I think it's called a tunic.
Yeah,
I've forgot all the lingo I have.
But the red tunic, white sash, not the jack boots, but riding boots, which is another story, because he was a 13, he had to have the riding boots of the officer in charge at Knightsbridge. And so Will said, can I dress him like that? And I said, oh, that would be beautiful. Anyway, he did it, and quietly he said to me, I said, how's James? And he went, he could be on guard, Caroline, like that. Anyway, the time went on. We walked down to the churchyard. Will had stepped it all out and everything for the her bearers and everything, and the shooting thingy. And I said, I've got to see him, Will. And he said, well, he looks like he could be on guard, but remember, it's 11 days now. So I'd been with my nan when she died and saw her by accident with my sister, who wanted to put a cuddly toy in with her. So I couldn't not go in because that would be rude. So I stood outside the chapel of rest, and as I stood there and looked in, and she's right by the door, so I saw my nan anyway. So it was a bit of a shock, and it didn't look like my nan. So I was a bit wary of that. And Rob said to me, ex-Rob said, Caroline, just be careful. He was good looking, vibrant, he said, if you ever go and see him, I don't want to know, but just bear that in mind. I've seen relatives that have passed, and it's probably better to remember him alive. Mm-hmm. This voice still nagging at me. So I made a mistake. I didn't make a mistake with the funeral directors, because they were very, very good, but I thought they were local to us, but they weren't. I won't go into that now. But the good thing with them was that they said whenever I wanted to visit James, I could go and see him. So on the Sunday morning, Rob, my son, contacts me, and I said, I'm going to church. Just to be quiet, I'm going to the service. So got there at 10 o'clock, not being a regular churchgoer. It didn't start till 10:30. So I'm sat in the front pew and I said to Rob, I want to go and see James. So he knew the undertaker we were using, Andy Hawkins.
I'll just let it out.
He was the father of a lovely kid called Chris, who was in Stephen's band, who died tragically to do with drugs and stuff. And so he turned to being an undertaker, and he said he would look after James as he'd looked after Chris, which meant a lot. So Rob knew Andy, phoned Andy and said, come and go and see James Sunday morning. It was at Tile Hill. Oh, I thought it was at Castle Bromwich, just down the road from Coleshill. I was beside myself. Anyway, got there. The music's on in the flat above, full pelt. Andy phones them, tells them to turn it off. This is weekend, there's a flat above. I'm not moaning at that. And he said, I'll just go in to check on James, make sure he hasn't got up to anything. And we went into the side room. Son Rob was with me, and I made sure I knew how James was positioned in the room, what I would see first, and everything. So Andy said, do you want me to come in with you? And I said, yeah. So I pushed open the door and saw his boots. Then I saw trousers. Then I saw a red tunic. Then I saw James. And I went, my God, you're gorgeous in death as you were in life. Honestly, Nathan, he had a good colour. This is really ridiculous.
Yeah.
He looked really well. He'd bulked out. He shoulders and that's nothing to do with how they looked after him. He had filled out man-wise, and he was just absolutely goddamn perfect. I swear to God. Obviously he wasn't, but he looked well, and because of his mischievousness, I thought the little sod's going to sit up in a minute and go, rah, I'm home, like that. Oh, God, I'd have loved that to have happened, but I'd probably had an heart attack. Yeah. Anyway, went back out, had a cup of tea, went back in, sat with James. Andy said, do you want me to take his gloves off? Because he had the white gloves on. And I said, oh, no, he's been through enough. So I was looking at him, just perfect. Mouth, perfect. He got a cut through his one eyebrow from a childhood accident. But his eyelashes were just perfect on his cheeks. He was, honestly, I know he was broken. I'm not stupid. But there was no nightmare to it. He looked like James.
Yeah.
So I kissed him on his forehead 6 times and kissed him full on his mouth, which he would have absolutely hated had he been alive. One for each of us. Mm-hmm. And went back out and then sat with him again. If I'd have known now what I didn't know back then because of grief, I would have had his gloves taken off to hold my baby's hand. Mm-hmm. I would have gone back and stopped with him more. I asked Rob, because Rob was there, son Rob, do you want to see James? And I thought, this is really terrible. I don't want to upset my ex-husband, Rob, anymore. I thought, what do I do? And Rob got to the door and he said, I can't. I just want to remember him as he is. So part of me thinks that if Rob had said he was going in, if he'd seen James, there was no choice then. All of my children would have gone in. And so would my mum and dad. So would my aunts, and so would James's friends. But I think the biggest fear was not knowing what he would look like and having whispered, oh, he looked awful, he got this on him, that on him and that, Yeah. But he didn't. So one of my regrets is the fact that it still didn't make it real, I have to say. Still didn't get it. But I'd seen it. I kissed him goodnight. The voice stopped. A bit further on, Jack and Rob don't like going to the grave. The one day I went down with Jack, this is relevant to me seeing James, and Jack said, Mum, I ain't coming down here. I wonder what he was like when he come back. And I went, Jack, he was beautiful. And he went, what? And I went, I seen him. And he went, you saw him? And I went, yeah. I said, he was beautiful. And you could see like his shoulders relax, you know, and like nothing bad. It couldn't get any worse, but he looked perfect. And I think that's why they should have seen him, to help their journey with understanding. And I regret that. And I built myself up over that so much. But I didn't want to upset Rob anymore. You know, the first night it happened, you're in disbelief. And I phoned up Rob and I said, Rob, how are you? You know, how are you? And he went, I don't think I'm going to get through the night. So it ended up with me lying on the bed with Rob, holding each other, because he said, we're his parents. We are the only two that know that feeling. And then Stephen come in, and he was the other side of Rob. He got on the bed as well. Jack was asleep. And then son Rob come up, and he went behind me. But then eventually we had a cup of tea, and I don't think Rob went to sleep. I think he looked at the ceiling all night, and I went on Facebook because I was sort of getting, I know it sounds daft, but I was trying to make it real.
Yeah.
It weren't real. Even seeing Trevor McDonald reading my Facebook messages on News at 10, and you know, and his mother Caroline left this message, and I'm like, still didn't get it. And then Jack had given a picture of James to be shown when the name was released, and it was a different picture of James in Helmand that I now know was off his phone. And I was trying to, my bubble went, and I was trying to sort of get James out the telly. You know, honestly, it's just overwhelming. But I can talk like this because my bubble is in place. Mm-hmm. It's really weird.
And which photo was that? Was that him stood by the water?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where,
you wouldn't go in?
No.
He wouldn't go in.
He did in the end.
Yeah,
but he kept going, oh, what's that by my foot?
Yeah. He was...
Was you there?
I either want to say, like I said, a lot of it's quite hazy for me. So I want to say yes. I feel like the troops come together and we were in this water, because I'm adamant I was in there with the interpreter. But it's hard for me to say. I don't want to say yes. I don't want to say no. But I definitely have a memory of being in water with another group of people. And I feel like that was the running joke, because sometimes it all comes together. And you find that we did one, we went in that water. The next day we went in that water. And then people tell the same story, a similar story, and they come into one. So I can't really remember if both of our troops met up. But that's what I feel like happened. Because I remember people taking the mick out of each other for not going in because it's too cold, or you're just like, well, it's too cold. It's 60 degrees or whatever it was. But no doubt when I speak to other people, there'll be some clarity that gets brought around that.
Clearer.
But he didn't go in. Well, he did in the end.
He did in the end, because that's what his shoulders was like. Because they said he was going to the gym because he and Kira had finished. So like he was going to the gym and that. And I think I said to someone, might have been you, I can't remember. You know, like I was really worried about his, finishing with Kira and that, and whatever happened. And they said, oh no, he was still professional, still got on with the job, you know, like that's it. He said, but we did have a laugh. Like he said, we went to the gym and James is like building up his shoulder, and he said something about dumbbells, and did they have Velcro straps on or something, and they put them round him, or he was attached to something, and then they pulled his trousers down, and the Americans thought it was disgusting, but they all howled. And then another thing, he went into the mess, and I don't know who he was sitting with, but they sort of went, you see her behind the mess? Slide her over a £20 note, and she slide. I remember
this, yeah. I know this exact story. They basically wound him up saying that the girl was doing things for 20 quid or whatever you want to call it. And I can only remember that I wasn't there at that particular time, but I was definitely known of the story because everyone used to say it to everyone. And that poor woman.
I know.
Poor woman. But I think she got the joke that people were joking, and and she played along with it.
Yeah. So they're watching him, and he's sort of asking for his can of Coke, but got this 20, let's say 100. I can't defame the girl. It was a joke.
Yeah.
Probably in squaddy taste, but it's funny. And sliding this £20 note, trying to be a bit cautious, and they're all absolutely peeing themselves, and then he realised, and it's like, oh, good one.
Yeah.
But, still that famous banter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Amazing. So.
How was his send-off?
Oh, God. As I say, Will was there doing it all. I'd seen James. He's, what do they say, paced it out, stepped it out, whatever. And we were walking, and he went, Caroline, you really should go and see James, he went. And Rob Munday went, I don't want to know, walk down the path in front. And I went to see him this morning. And he went, thank God, I knew you would. I knew you were strong. I said, I had to, because he needed kissing goodnight. And everything was in place. We knew what was happening. Went round on the day. Didn't have to worry about a thing because Will and the cavalry had done it all. We knew there were going to be soldiers there in ceremonial dress. We knew there was going to be a horse-drawn hearse. So as I get to Mum and Dad's, it's an avenue. Will's put all these things upon the garages. Please, no cars at this time. And everybody went by it, agreed to it, never took the cars around. Great show of respect. And we'd asked local girls, Jeanette and Joe, to do the food. They've got a catering business. And Laura come back to me and she said, they can't cope with it, Mum. There's got to be more input. And I went, why? And, well, there could be thousands. I'm like, no, what? You're grieving. You can't see it anyway. It was all in hand. Decided to have it at a local pub. They got marquees to put outside on the car park and stuff. And it turns out that all of Kozel put towards Indians, Chineses, whoever, local hotels and stuff, put food towards James's wake. Mm-hmm. And so it was like a town, a community thing, and it was beautiful. I go around the avenue, I see the horses that are gleaming, and they come around the avenue and they're trying to put James into the hearse, and he won't go in. The flag catches on the runners and stuff. We're all outside, can see people walking past, and it starts to rain, which sort of suited it. They finally get James into the hearse. Part of me is thinking he wants to come with his nan and granddad's. And we're going up the road. We follow him up the road. There's a separate car for flowers, and people are at the windows. There's the odd person at the side of the street. Turn into Kozel High Street. God, I couldn't believe it. There's people either side lining the streets. There's black ribbons on the doors, on the shop fronts from Penny Johnson, our florist, my friend. Just loads of people. Turn the corner into Churchill. The Poppy people, the Royal British Legion are there with the flags. My old boss Johnny's there with people from Netlink. There's the fire engine up there. It's just rammed with people. And when we turned there, we all looked at each other, and it's like emotions are so rocky, and we almost laughed because we didn't know what to do. What the hell is happening here? We just didn't expect it, but the overwhelming support of those people being there made us able to cope. and it was spectacular. It was spectacular. It was the best ever send-off. The soldiers were there, Blues and Royals, lifeguards. Will had all photos done for the vestry bit, walk through. Bring Him Home was being sung by Coleshill Choral Society. Couldn't see them, they weren't performing, but singing it, it was haunting. And that actually got me down to sit down. My cousin was sitting on my left in the pew there, and I'd said, I don't want to see a stranger. Could you be there, Carla? So she's there. I see James's coffin, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, he can't be in there. You know, it's still, light doesn't get me. The service is beautiful. It was our local vicar, Nick the Vic Parker, and the Army Padre. So they both did stuff. I couldn't read my message out, so the vicar read it for me, Nick the Vic. Jack couldn't do his, but he wrote some lovely words. And so Laura, Robert and Stephen did their bit, and then Robert's read out Jack's as well. We went down out of the church as they played You'll Never Walk Alone, because he was a Liverpool fan. Throngs of people outside listening in the rain. Walked down to the grave. I remember Dowell, the padre, opposite me, and there's like artificial grass at the edge of the grave, and all I can see is the soldiers' feet like shuffling along, and I look and I'm like worried and look at Dowell, and he goes, "No one's fallen in yet, Caroline." And I, you know, like, and then at the end he said something like, "We will remember them," and he said it with such strength, it like boomed in my chest. And I remember being given the flag and James's belt and his cap and medals. Would I have had those at that stage? I don't know, it's a fuddle.
Yeah, so you would have had a medal. And
I know,
I'm
he's
sure
got
you got
two,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. So unless they would have got them done for that
I'm
time.
not sure of that. It might have just been the cap and the flag and the belt. Yeah, I think it was, definitely. Will took them out of the rain, went back to the wake. The soldiers that had been come back with James, one of them hadn't even told his mum he was back in the country. And I said, you'll give her a heart attack if you just turn up, please. As a mum, tell her that you're home in the country safe. But they were lovely. Mick Flynn was there. It took me about 2 hours to actually sit down with my mum and dad and family because of talking to people. It was just rammed. Sergeant Hills was there from the Queen Elizabeth. He was like doped up to the eyeballs because he was in pain with his injuries, but he came as a sign of respect for James. And his nurse Katie, he's like a Coleshill girl, so she was accompanying him. And then it's all quite a blur. And I know I was talking to Jack Mann, and it just all went all hazy. And then I'm stood by the door, and everybody's looking out the door, and these big white flakes are falling from the sky of snow. It's just pure and white. And somebody shouted, "It's James, he's gone skiing." And they went, "It's James." And it was just beautiful, so pure, so white, just perfect, just white. They were landing. It was the 28th of October, 2008, and we'd had a bit of rain, had a bit of sun, and now it was snowing. There's James for you. And I just, 7:20, I said to Laura, Rob's girlfriend at the time, I need to get out of here. I said, can you tell my kids? So they all come over, and I'm just cracking up then. It's been a big day. Absolutely perfect, beautiful send-off. And then Jack sees me, and he gets upset, and he's just got Laura in one arm and me in the other, and he said, these are my girls. No one will ever hurt them. I'll protect them for you, James, and that. And they said that they would take me home, but I just walked home, just needed quiet. And then years later, I was in the charity shop just having a mooch. We've got a lovely charity shop in Coleshill. And they was talking, the lady behind the desk, and she said, "Oh, that's one funeral I remember." And like me and my sister are there. And she said, "Of that young soldier."
How did that come about?
They were just talking, the staff in the charity shop didn't know me and Nikki were there. And she said it was the most beautiful, beautiful send-off. What a funeral. She went, and Nikki went, "This is his mom." And she went, "I'm really sorry." And I went, "No, it was really beautiful." So that was that. Then we had repatriation. And Kira came with us to repatriation. She's only 5'1" or 2. I might be doing her a disservice here.
Yeah.
But like James was 6'2", so and we all said Kira should be there, and Rob agreed. He said James loved Kira, so she was there. They booked her a room in the hotel separately, but we'd already said she needed to be with us, so she come in with us, and they rolled in this bed. Oh my God, Munday, if you'd have seen it, it's like a doll's bed, but she fitted in it perfectly. So we were all together for that. And then what really sticks out is we watched everything, totally overwhelming. The RAF at Lynham were amazing. Mm-hmm. The ladies were upset with us. We saw the plane come in. I can still see it in my eyes. I can remember the guys carrying him down and me shouting James, because I don't know, at that point I thought he would still walk off, and Will was behind me. I know Will was behind me, but I was holding Laura's hand, perhaps Kira, the boys, all got tears. But I thought to myself, if he's up there looking at us, mate, he'll be proud of us. And we left the ladies in this lovely, it's like a stately home, but on a runway. And they bought us coffee with brandy and everything, or if we wanted that. But they were wonderful. The whole day was beautiful. And he was home. And they said we could see him in the chapel of rest. So we went in the chapel of rest, and we all went in all together. And the Union flag was over the coffin, and there was James's name on a brass plate. And I ran my finger over it, and I thought, walked out the room. Dal, the padre, was outside. I said, "What's that got to do with James? His name might be on it, but it's not James, like." And then the kids went in by themselves, and then Kira wanted to go in. But because they'd finished and that, she always says, "You could have treated me differently, but you was always so lovely to me." And I said, "But we love you, Kira, Anyway, she wanted to go in, and she couldn't go in by herself, so Dal went in. So I sat in the hall, the others were outside, and there was like a stand with candles on, and we'd lit a candle for James. Kira went in with Dal. The padre comes out, and Kira's still in there. Well, I seen her walk in that room, and I seen her walk out. She walks out, shoulders up, lights a candle, and comes and sits by me. I said, "You all right, Kira?" And she went, "Something happened in there." And I went, "What happened?" She said, "I had to look up." She said, "Not to the ceiling, just up." She said, and tears in her eyes. And she went, "It's all okay." And I swear to God, James' spirit was in that room. Swear to God. Because I seen her walk in, I seen her walk out. And I just know that, that girl had that connection there. And she always said, "You'll always be James's mummy, you'll always be James's sister, brothers, but I won't always be his girlfriend." And I said, "No, you won't, Kira." I said, "But, when you move on, don't be scared to tell me, because you have to move on." And who knows what would have happened, when he come home. Who knows? They might have got back together. Mm-hmm. They might not have. But whenever I see her, she's got 3 children now, and she's married, and she's got beautiful brown eyes. And sometimes on a Mother's Day, she will send me a message to my other mum, Happy Mother's Day, because if James was out or away, she would bring me flowers for my birthday on his behalf. So it sort of still warms my heart. And yeah, so that's it. And still don't get it to this day.
What helps you get through it currently? So what words would I want to use? Obviously, after all that's happened, and then I don't want to say you fall back into normal life, because you don't. You've then got to continue for your other kids as well.
Yeah.
So how do you cope? I know that you've done some writing before.
Yeah. Well, after James was killed, I couldn't go back to Parcel Force, and then a job come up within the building that Netlink are in, and one of the Netlink ladies told me about this PA position for Technicolor. So, cut a long story short, I passed everything, looked the part. Pencil skirts, high shoes, stockings. Man, she's on it. Inside, I'm a blooming mess. Absolute mess. Lippy on, but crap. Did a great job. Then it all hit me again, so I'm off. But the support of the Coleshill community, the fact that the cavalry was still there, the fact that I never did anything physically, but we were raising money for the Household Cavalry Foundation, charity. Rob decided he wanted to cycle from John O'Groats to Land's End, so that was something that kept us going for a bit. James's dad did it as well. Norrie was driving the caravanette thing, or camper van, I should say, with Bard, and they did it. They got to the end. I just arranged all the dances and everything wherever we got. Freddie got really happy. We did lots of charity things like that. My ex-husband Rob, he climbed Kilimanjaro to raise money. Just marathons. Rob did the London Marathon. Son Rob did the London Marathon. So there's all this going on, and the support of the cavalry is there. So although you look like you're carrying on normally and everything, that is taking your mind off it. Getting James's name on the war memorial, I had a thing that I had to do things right for James. So as well as grieving, I'm getting his name on the war memorial. I thought that happened automatically. No, they have to find out who owns the war memorial. They have to make it better, refurbish it and stuff. I wanted his name on there the same as the First and Second World Wars, but they told me that I could have a plaque because, thank God, there was only James that was killed from Afghan, so he could have a bit more on his. There was an upset with that, but that, getting his bench in place, Will flying back, going to church on the anniversary, soldiers coming up, James, can't say soldiers, his brothers in the army coming up, the stories, the support, the keeping your mind busy with work, keeping your mind busy with raising money, keeping your mind busy with getting things right for James's memory. Then my cousin did the Shackleton ride and a barn dance. So the Cav were there, rode out with civilians, raised money, had a great barn dance on the night. Absolutely, I thought I was fit, but man, I couldn't even keep up. I was out of breath. I must have been seeing things because it was really weird. I could actually see James in the crowd watching the dancing. For a split second, I saw him. And the funny thing was, my cousin who arranged it, Janice, didn't know that I'd seen that. And she went, "Do you know, I saw James watching the dancing." And I went, "You are kidding me." So, could be wishful thinking, but I do think he's around. So every 15th of October, I'd go to church. Nick the Vic was there, do a little service, go down to James's grave. Every New Year's Eve, I go to the grave, see in the new year, 2008 to 2009, I went down with my sister. I didn't want to leave 2008 behind because it's another goodbye to James.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got the soldiers still being killed. Then I got involved with trying to get the soldiers back. My initial not speaking my words at James's funeral, I sort of got over that, spoke at Trafalgar Square, marched on Downing Street, tried to get to Afghanistan with ITN, did interviews and stuff. The journey to try and get to Afghanistan was to just try and breathe the air, feel the place, and if there was any energy of James's left there, then he would come home with me. It didn't work out, but for 2 years I tried and had the support of ITN. They were amazing. And at the same time had the support of Will as well, who had my back and still has our back. Giles at the foundation. The support never ends, and the camaraderie, the tightness of you must have felt when you were in is still with me now. They are still very much there with me. I know that if I've got a problem, I can phone Will. You know, if he's in wherever he is in the Middle East and stuff, because he's no longer in the army, I can phone Giles. I can phone you. I can phone any of you. Zach Smith, I was witness at his wedding for him. I just absolutely have the highest respect for all of you. And you coming for James in his memory, despite it being the most devastating thing that has ever happened in my life, the fact that you still come and see us and do things like this, he left a legacy of love.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is it. Yeah.
So how have you felt, with everyone coming back every year? Because the lads, we all try and come up. We sometimes say, I remember there being a period of time where we were like, do we stop? Do we stop? Because what we didn't want to do was become that reminder every time we come up. And that was one of our fears. And I think we spoke about this years ago, didn't we? And you says, absolutely not. Yeah. So how did you feel with the lads coming up all the time? I
am usually worse before the day, and sometimes I want to just hide away. But you have like a tradition that you do to get you through, and having that routine gets you through the day, and it is always amazing to see you all, honestly. And even if I find it hard, the stories always come out, and I find that the reminder is positive, not negative. Mm-hmm. I always think that the day before and that I might want to just, sometimes I just want to go into bed and not do the day and stuff like that. But I always try and put makeup on and go out there for James, because I know one day I'm going to meet him. And he said to me, tell it as it is. And he said he ironed his trousers and everything. So I figure that when that day comes, he's going to go, woohoo, look at me, Mum. And then he'll go, you lost it a bit. But no, seriously, you all coming up. The legacy, the way he touched your lives is a huge thing to leave. And I hate the word wake. Mm-hmm. But now when I think of it as positive, because you're all part of that journey, and I find it uplifting. Yeah. You're all family, you're always welcome. If I can help with anything, I will. I love you all. That's as basic as it can get.
Yeah.
Love and respect.
Do you want to talk about your book a bit? You've got a book you're writing. Do you want to go into that or not?
I'll just say quickly, I wrote everything down. When I started my new job, my boss used to go out and play golf, so I used to write what was going on at the time. So I found it very cathartic, and I've kept it all the way through. And a lot of people have read it, Will included. The cavalry are behind me, and it gives an insight as to what happened behind the scenes. And I wrote it for my grandchildren, so they would know their Uncle James and his character and his madness and his everything. But I think a lot of people have said it's a good insight. So I will be publishing, whether it's self-published or not, and it's called Losing James, A Mother's Story. And it just gives a glimpse behind the scenes, but it tells you how lucky I was to have the household cavalry there. And if you've got a problem, send in the cavalry. Ask the guys, they're always there. Yeah. So, yeah.
So when you say it's just got to be
edited.
It's got to be edited. So when it goes online, just let me know, and I'll put the link in.
Okay.
The bio to this.
Yeah.
To this podcast. But yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you could think about? I know I spoke to a few lads on the way up, and we spoke about a couple of stories. Have you heard about the one with the bogies? I'm sure we spoke about this.
Do you know, it rings a bell, but you're going to have to tell me.
So we all decided to go out shopping, and at the time there was this programme that everyone would go in public and they would see who's the loudest to shout bogies. And then we'd all went into Tesco, and there's about 5-6 of us walking around, and you'd be like 5-6 aisles away, and it would be like someone was stood next to you, and he'd be screaming bogies. And I think he won that time. Yeah, but he actually found it really embarrassing.
Yeah, he would.
Found it so like when you were saying about your public affection.
Oh.
It was very similar to that. He would. You would be like, shut up, don't shout that. And then he did get involved in the end.
Oh,
when he sort of got past it.
I haven't told you about this.
Go on.
When he come back after 6 weeks, one troop come back after 6 weeks, so we're the first to come on R&R. So Rob and I had been to see Bruce Springsteen at Man United's ground. And next day, James was coming back off R&R, and Kira was going down to pick him up. So, me and Rob thought, sorry, Netlink, we're going to skive the morning. Mm-hmm. Turned into the day. Sorry. And we went down to Windsor, to Combermere Barracks, to be there. What a great surprise that would be. So they're late coming back because of traffic. Kira's dying for the toilet. So we think, go to Combermere Barracks. Go through, they do all the checks on the car. Kira goes off and does what she has to. Me and Rob are sitting on the wall. Kira comes back, and the wall on the left as you go in, we're all sitting on there. The minibus comes back in. James's face when he come back. What are you doing here? I told you to come by yourself, Kira. Like that. Anyway, they go off, and I said, you know what, James, I'll never, ever surprise you again. He went, it's not like it's the end of the tour, like that. Yeah. And I thought, that's really ironic, looking back at that.
Yeah.
And we went back, he come back, we went to his room. He was going to have a shower, but everything was packed up in the boxes. And we were there, and I could see what a nice environment it was to live in compared, I suppose, to Knightsbridge, with it being Dickensian. Little did I know then boxes would be brought back to me. But he looked at me and Robin and went, I'm really sorry. He said, I'm really sorry. I'm lucky to have you here. I'm lucky to have my family. He said, come on, we'll walk into Windsor and go to Nando's, my treat. So it turned out well in the end. Yeah. And I often think his words, it's not even if it's the end at all, but yeah, God works in mysterious ways, doesn't he?
Certainly does, yeah. Mm. What would you say to soldiers now that are, and the reason for this podcast is to try and educate people on the early signs of PTSD and try and get them to talk. What would you say to people that if they think they're struggling, or they know, and they're just too worried to speak out. What, as a mother, your point of view, what would you say to them?
I think when you've been in the army and stuff, you're all really, really close. But I think from my point of view, it's looked upon as a weakness if you talk out about it. But you'd be surprised at the amount of soldiers that I've spoken to who are suffering. I'll always be there if anybody wants to talk to me. We've raised money for combat stress in the past, but I think they've not government funded anymore. So it must be really, really difficult to find that help out there. But mental illness and PTSD, sometimes you haven't got the strength to talk to someone. So it's really, really hard. And I find when you get together, you relive the moments and you can sort of take the fizz out the top of the bottle, you know.
Yeah.
But to actually be a parent, that you're happy that your child has come home and then lose him mentally while he's home, or her when she's home, and then lose them because they've gone off and, you know, committed suicide. I have a real thing about this, because where is the care? Where is the care to actually be on a battlefield one minute and then come back, you know, to shopping in Sainsbury's or whatever? You know, the change, I can't equate that. That's why I've got so much respect for you. But I think what you're doing is brilliant, and my door's always open. Guys, go and speak to someone. It's not a weakness, it is life. You know, some people will say, oh, you know, I'm depressed, I've got this mental illness and blah, blah, blah. But this is real. It's real. You need to address it. We don't want to not be there for you. We want to be there for you. And I think you doing this podcast and everything, please, please listen. Don't you ever dare phone us. You know, like, it's people commit suicide, and when you sort of do that, and I have got experience of this in my family, you're not yourself when that happens. So don't let it get that far. Talk and talk. People don't even have to talk back to you. Just listen. We'll listen. You know, please don't ever feel you're alone, because you're not. It's important to talk.
Absolutely. And thank you for putting up with me for the last couple of hours. It's been fantastic to talk.
Oh.
And you told me some things there I didn't even know. So
really?
Yeah, it's been quite enlightening. And thank you.
You're always welcome, Nathan. Always. I love you to bits. And Megan, love you.
Thank you.
So thank you for letting me speak.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Oh, that was quite fun.
Happy?
Yeah.
As in, like,
yeah. Yeah. Are you happy?
Yeah, more than happy. Thank you for...
Is it freezing cold?
Yeah, temperature's dropped, hasn't it?
Hasn't it? Yeah. Are you here, James?
It'd be mad if something fell off the side then, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I've been in a room with a medium, and she said, he's told me to, can you look at the light? And it's just a kitchen like this with 3 bulbs.
Yeah.
And I've looked, and it's dimmed, and then it's blue.
Really?
Never said my name. Anna, my friend, had booked it before he'd even been killed, and never give anything away to her. And then about 4 years later, Laura just used her name, Laura. And when she was at the door, she went, oh my God. She said, if he's going to bugger my electrics up again today, she said, it can't be fixed. And then I had a message from another girl who's that way, and this was years later, and she said, James said he's sorry, he didn't know he had that amount of energy. It's really bizarre. Is
that because you're quite churchgoers? I would say. Would you say no?
I'm not a churchgoer, but I find comfort in going to church on the 15th. I don't go now. Nick the vicar's left, but I go to Remembrance and
your sausage.
Still go to his grave and that on the 15th. Yeah, put it this way: if I didn't believe there was something there, I would be in a straitjacket. The only thing
Yeah.
that keeps me going is the fact that I'll see James again, because we have an energy, and that is what makes your person, you know. But then when you're just that case lying there, where's the energy gone?
Yeah.
That's what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I have had ghosts in my house as well. Not before James, when the kids were young, when we lived at Litchfield Road, and then my sister bought the house off me. She had to have Nick the Vic in to bless all the rooms.
It's bad, that, isn't it?
I know. So I do believe in that. But who knows?
Yeah.
We'll know one day.